Welcome back, my favorite Python programmers, to another video, and this one is not going to be a brand new video. This is going to be a continuation of what we were doing previously. So if you haven't watched part 1, I'm going to link it somewhere around here, because we started with a very nice project that explored the classes, dictionaries, lists, manipulating lists, and how to just focus and work on a project. So if you don't remember, this was the project that we were working on. So right here we had to create a real world zip code directory. So we just had to go through and create a simulation where we have a directory for different zip codes, and each zip code had a list of locations. So we went through this entire document and we understood how to go through it, how to understand it, how to dissect it and work on different parts, and how to read through the lines and between the lines and understand what the instructor really wants from us when working on assignments. And I did not finish all of it because the video got to 20+ minutes, and I thought it would be a good idea to stop at that point and then continue on later on. As you can see right here, this is where we got to. I also implored you to do it on your own as much as possible and then come back and watch this video together so that you learn. It's not about always doing it correctly, it is about trying your best and then doing the mistakes and then seeing how the solution looks like so that you can not repeat it in the future, if that makes sense. It does, trust me. This is how I teach. I've been doing this for a long time and I know that this works. Before we get started, make sure to leave a like, make sure to comment that you actually watched the first part and now you are in the second part, and let's continue on. So right here, what we needed to do was we needed to, first of all, we needed to create a method that would add addresses. So there we go. We are adding addresses. Then we needed to reverse the last address. So we went through, we had some conditions where we made sure that first of all, the zip code is part of the directory. Right here, the zip code was part of the directory and that it actually had a value, and then we simply reversed it. Now, we also had different applications of our methods right here. Now we're going to continue on and we are going to be doing, we're going to be now retrieving only the even zip files. We're going to be sorting addresses and we will identify zip codes from data. And by the way, these are the methods that are right here. So I'm going to disappear because you need to focus on the code, and I will see you, me as my face, you will see me later on. So let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so getting the even zip code. So this is going to be pretty simple because all that we need to actually do is first of all go, or let's actually look at what they're actually asking from us. So the get zip returns a list. You have to be careful. It returns a list. So I was thinking, is it return the number of even zip codes? Or is it return just some zip codes in a tuple maybe? No, it's a list. Okay, perfect. So we will be returning a list, and whenever we see that we need to be returning a list, it means that we are going to have to create a list, append it, and that means we will have to initialize it. So even zip codes, which is an empty list, right? Then we need to say that for zip code, zip underscore code in our self.directory dot, what was it called? Oh no, it's the directory. It's called directory, and we're going through the keys. Now it's not really necessary to add the dot keys. I like to add it whenever we actually want to go only through the keys. So for example, let's see, have we used a for loop? No, we haven't yet. But even if we don't have the keys, this would work the same. But I like adding the dot keys just so we know, like somebody who sees our code knows that, oh, we are working on the keys now, right? So we're going through these zip codes, and the only thing that we need to do, if you don't know this already, whenever you want to check if a number is even, you have to do the modulo, and the modulo gives you the remainder. And if whatever the zip code is, or whatever number it is, if it's divided by 2 and the remainder is nothing, it means that it's an even number, which means if it's equal to 0, then we will append our zip codes even with the zip code that we have. And once the for loop is done, we will return the even zip codes. And there we go. So if I scroll down, I'm going to copy and paste this right here, and I will print out a list of even zip codes. Remember, the object of type that we created was, where is it? The directory. All right, so directory dot even zip codes. So if I right click and I run, I should see that I have list of zip codes. We only have a single zip code. So let's see, this is a zip code, and this is a zip code, and this is a zip code. All right, so we only have one positive or one even zip code. All right, so that is good. Now, of course, you can populate this with a lot more examples. We're just doing things on the surface, so nothing to worry. As long as it works, then it works. All right, so let's continue on. What else did we have in here? We needed to sort by data type. All right, so we need to sort by data type. So sorts addresses by numbers first and then strings. So if we look back at our output right here, if you don't remember, or if you haven't watched, as you can see, we have sometimes addresses, right? So this is the zip code. We have addresses that are strings, but sometimes we have addresses that are simply integers. Now, I'm not sure this is very realistic. As you can see right here, we only have one address, 1849, that is simply an integer. But what we need to do is we need to make sure that we start with numbers. So right here, addresses, these sorts the addresses by numbers first and then strings later. Now, to make sure that this is actually something that is interesting, if I scroll down, I forgot to use this example right here. So even zip codes, yeah, it did it somewhat differently, but it's okay. I'm going to actually copy these 3 lines, right? And I'm going to add them at the bottom of my code. And I will separate them by these dashes. Now, of course, if we run this, we're going to get an error because we still haven't created our sort by data type. So I'm simply going to copy this. And as you can see, it does take in the zip code that we want to rearrange. And right here, I'm going to define this. So I will define, paste this, and of course we need to add the self. All right, I will add a bit of documentation right here, and we should just keep it simple and say that this sorts items in the address list for a given zip code. Keep it simple, right? Sorts out the list for sorts items in the address list for a given zip code. I will say numbers, then strings, right? All right. So what should we be doing in here? Now, this was slightly difficult, right? So what I did is I provided, whenever you feel in doubt, you always have to check. So by example, right here, hint, use the modulo operator to check if a number is even, to retrieve even zip codes, right? This is something I didn't yet. Sorry, I'm rusty. I haven't seen this in a day or so. So right here, sort addresses, organize addresses for a zip code such that the numbers appear before the strings, hence separate numbers and non-numbers into 2 different lists, then merge them. Excellent. So first of all, we separate into numbers and non-numbers, and then we append them or merge them together into a single. And this helps keep the logic simple and clean. So if we go back right here, if I scroll down, we've added a few integer addresses to our 1001. So let's see what it contained. Oh, it already contained a few integers. You know what I'm going to do is I'm going to add to this address right here. I'm going to add 84, and then you know what? I will add a string right here, 74 main street. I don't know any streets, so I'm just trying to add them as randomly as possible, and then 3268 right? So just adding more addresses so we have a bit of variety. I will also add like to this. Let's add a few. Let's add boom 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 boom, right? And boom 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 boom, and in between I will add one that is a string. So right? Like if you know any realistic addresses, I highly recommend that you add those instead. Let me make it Maple, because we have a lot of main streets. All right, Maple Avenue. Perfect. So now that we have this, let's go ahead and work on sorting our data. So as said in the hint, we need to first of all create a list for the numbers and then a list for the strings. So I'm going to say numbers equals to an empty string, and then strings equal to, did I say empty string? I meant empty list. So we have two empty lists. Now what we'll do is we want to go through the zip codes and the directory and then unfold them. So I know this is a bit rudimentary, but first of all, we need to make sure that if the zip code is in the self.directory. So we need to make sure that this zip code is actually in there. Once we know that it's in there, we're going to say for item in the self.directory, add that zip code, right? So now we have access to the actual list. We've accessed it using the zip code key. We're going to say if the is instance, this is how we check the type of an item, is that of an integer, right? Now we could check if this is a float, right? Because we had one float address in here. Yeah, okay. So let's go ahead and check for a float, because we did say, so whenever you want to provide multiple types, you would have to provide a float. And by the way, like, please bear with me. Addresses shouldn't be just integers. Maybe they are. Addresses should not be floats. I'm pretty sure of that. But for the sake of this example, to explore everything that we have, we just go outside of reality just a little bit. This is not a real project. I know I said like real world project, but we're using elements of the real world to learn everything that there is. So what I'm trying to do in here is I'm trying to check if this item is of type integer or if it's of type float. And the way that we present it to the is instance, like if we hover over the is instance, we provided the object and class of tuples. So this is a tuple, right? We don't provide just a list or just integer and then float. We provide it with a tuple of the different types that we need. So once we have that, if it's a numbers, so numbers dot append with the item, right? And else the strings dot append with the items. And then finally, what should we be doing in here? Oh, by the way, inside of the for loop. So once we go through all of them, what should we be doing? We should say self.directory at the zip code is now equal to numbers plus strings. Okay. Now, before we move on, if you read carefully right here, you can see that sorts addresses by numbers and then strings later. And a keyword here that does not appear is the return. So this does not return anything. It simply sorts things out, makes sure that we actually modify these different values inside of our keys. All right. So if we scroll down right here, we are doing this for the 101. If you remember, we have a few values. Right click and run. And if we look, we can see that for 101, we had a string and then the number. If we look now, we can see that after sorting the data type for 101, look at that. Now all the numbers start at the beginning. And remember, when we were adding these addresses, they were added at the end. We can even actually, you know what? Let me print out before sorting 101, and then we will print out the directory. Whoops. So you can use replacement fields, you can do whatever you want. Right click. So if we look at 101, look at how it looked. See, we had them at the end, now we have them at the start. I'm going to duplicate and then sort this one, and then directory, and then we need to actually sort the data for this one. Right click and run, and there we go. Was it sorted? Yes or no? Wait, I'm confused. Let me comment this one out. We just want to see the second one. So we had sort data. Why am I so confused? Okay, wait. Before sorting, let's just say before sorting here. Let me also add a print just to see things clearly, because I'm a bit confused. So right here we had a string, number. Oh, we had a number in here as well. So we had string, number, and now we have number, and the 3 strings after it. Okay, perfect. So this one works great. You can also test it out on the last one, even though I think it's almost the same. Okay, perfect. So we have this one down. Is there anything else? I believe this was the last one. Or, oh, find the zip code. All right, so extracts a valid zip code from a list. Now, let's go up. Let's see right here. Detect and extract a valid 5-digit zip code from a mixed list of data. So this one is going to be a little bit different because we are providing a list to this function or this method, and then we're checking all the values and seeing which ones are actual zip codes. And a valid zip code is an integer that ranges between 10,000 and 99,999,000. Okay, so we can scroll down, we can see the example. Let me go ahead and copy this, go back and print out a few dashes, and then add this code, right? So find zip code, let me copy it. What should it be getting? Let's see. It should be getting a data list. All right, so a list of data. So if you scroll up and we define zip code self, comma, data list. All right, so what do we have in here? We should give it, as always, I like to give it just, especially because this is like a real world project, it's good to give it some directions for a user. So it finds a valid zip code from a list of data, right? From a list of data. Sounds good. So pretty simple, I think. It's less complicated than what we've been doing so far. So all that we need to do is we need to say for item in the data list, we check if, first of all, we need to make sure that it's a number, right? So if is instance, and by the way, look at the discrepancy, right? We said that it should be an integer. A valid zip code is an integer, even though we've added a float and we were checking for a float. So please bear with me, I understand. So if this item is an integer and this item is, we can actually do something like this. If it's greater than 10,000, by the way, you can add underscores between numbers. If it's greater than or equal to the items, or if it's less than or equal to 99_999. Boom, there we go. If it is, then we return, what does it say actually? Extracts code and mixed with the data, a valid, what does it say? Extracts a valid from a list. Well, it doesn't say if it needs to return anything, but I don't know. I just felt that we can simply return the item. And otherwise, if we go through all of this and we do not return anything, we simply return none. We don't have to do this, but it's good to always have a return none. So let's see our example right here, right click, run, and it did extract everything correctly. Ladies and gentlemen, another video at the 21-minute mark. This one was filled with information. I hope you enjoyed, and the most important thing, I hope that you tried to do this on your own and then you came back and you applied what you've learned. Thanks so much for watching. I really I really hope that some of you actually watched part 1, watched part 2. It would fill my heart because, yeah, things are not going well, but we continue on chugging. I'm going crazy. Thanks so much for watching. Have a good Christmas, and I will see you next week with another video. Bye bye for now.